This is Kyle with Outside and Aquatics, and today I'm recording a collab with Aquafinity, giving me a chance to show off my fish room and check out some of these rare shrimp species, amazing fish I have in this place. What you see behind me is the workhorse of my operation. And each of these tanks are what I would call plant cultures or my grow outs for plants. And then I harvest from them certain types of plants, and then I pot them in my own plastic pots with rock wool and aqua soil. I have 18 fish tanks, 3 plant grow outs, and a fry grow out system. That's a lot of water. It's how I make things happen. I try for the most part to fund my operation with the stuff behind me. Recently I've kind of rearranged some of my tanks. That's why some of them are looking kind of bare. I also recently just did a harvest and made up a bunch of pots of plants. Some of the grow outs are looking a little bit bare right now. That's because I got a bunch of potted plants and grow outs under here. I also keep guppies. We have a few different strains of guppies. We have the blue metal lace. We have a Vienna-ish strain. I have a line of guppies that throws out some half blacks. So I don't have a specific half black line yet, but I have some males, and I'm reintroducing them to the female that they came from in hopes to just strengthen up that half black line. We also have the traditional mixed guppy tank. If you have guppies at home, you're gonna end up with a mixed guppy tank. So we have that. This is gonna be getting switched out to something else. I'm gonna put all the mixed guppies in a pond down here. I also have Stan Schubel green deltas, the American green deltas. That's a sought after line right there, and it's one that I'm really excited and proud to have. We also have some red dragons there. They come out red dragon-ish sometimes, so yeah, but I got a bag of red dragon fry at one point, grew them out, and now I have a line that's red dragon-ish. Like I said though, I really focus on beginner people. You know, beginner sales is my thing. I want to be able to bring beginners in. A lot of people start off with big tanks, a lot of stress and things and money and all that stuff, and that's hard on your psyche. The key to fish keeping for me was to relieve stress, not add to it. And so I try to give that to other people. It's kind of the heart and soul of Outside and Aquatics. We also have a tank up here of black mollies. Also got a wrestling half beak and my samurai betta. One thing I've learned with pairing bettas with other fish is it definitely matters the size that they are paired with. Also, I think it's better to let the other species get comfortable in the tank and then let the betta come in. It seems to be going well. I didn't think it was going to at first because he's a bit of a brute. This is a relatively new tank. Plant load is pretty light. It's not really filled in very much yet. This is another one of my favorite tanks. It just hasn't grown in yet. Now this tank right here is my Blue Dream shrimp colony. It was inspired by flower bouquets. This was one of the aquascapes that I'm most proud of. We got a pretty solid blue shrimp line that I'm building up in there. We have Sylvinia natans on the top. Now anybody could do something like this. You just get a little bit of aqua soil, some sand, and if you can get a hold of some plants, I really push, you know, buying plants locally. This is achievable. That's something that I think is another thing that's unique about my fish room. I think this is a pretty beautiful aquascape. It's going through some of the changes because it's a relatively new scape. So we got some hair algae, low tech lights, no CO2. I do run sponge filters on all of my tanks. When I started this tank, it was actually a no filter tank. Now, I've had issues with that in the past with losing shrimp colonies, and I don't really like to run the no filter tanks anymore. I think that air is probably the least stressful way of running tanks, and that is a big thing that I push. No stress in this fish game. This is another one of my favorite aquascapes. The reason I love this aquascape is the Vallisneria. It's just flowing, and it's got that long, just kind of drapes over. The other reason I like Vallisneria is it's perfect for beginner fish keepers. This plant you can give to basically anybody. They plant it. It'll probably die back a little bit, but once it gets past that initial acclimation period, it takes off. I love giving this to beginner fish keepers. We have some dwarf Sagittaria. We also have some Anubias in here. We have a red shrimp colony. We have Chilianthorina werneri, which are the threadfin rainbows. They're usually hanging out in the back of the Vallisneria. I just kind of stirred everything up because I was cleaned up the glass a little bit. This is just one of my favorite tanks just because of that flowy nature. It's going to be getting an upgrade soon for that 29 gallon because this is a 20 long. The 29 gallon has the same footprint. We're going to give it higher and let this Vallisneria drape over a little better than it is right now. It's going to be awesome. If you're looking to make a breeding for profit home business venture, the way to do it is dealing with customers person. I have friends that sell to different stores. That's a very consistent way of making money, but the way I like doing it is I like being the person, I like being the store, selling to people, being the one that deals with the customers and educates them on how to start a fish tank, gives them those first items that get them going in this hobby. I like to be the door for that. That's like really the key. If you want to make money, it's bringing in brand new customers and giving them a positive, stress-free first experience with a fish tank. The way I do that is making awesome plants, keeping my fish healthy and my shrimp healthy. And I really focus on a local economy. I like doing that and then keeping everything right here. Selling to people in the local area. Facebook, OfferUp are the way to advertise that. The way you advertise, that's a whole nother conversation. When dealing with customers on Facebook and stuff like that, when they reach out to you, if they're asking for, hey, I just looking for shrimp, send them your fish, your plants, everything. Send it to them, and then that way you could start building them a bundle. If you learn what they have at home, you can learn to suggest like, hey, I have this plant and this plant can go with this shrimp or fish or whatever. You build packages and you turn that single sale into a bigger sale. And that's really the key to this at-home breeding thing, is having those conversations. But I will say, you are going to have 10 conversations to every 2 or 3 sales you get. There's a lot of talking. If you don't mind it, and if you have the free time to do those conversations, it's a pretty decent way to make some good money. The most important things to keep a natural aquarium healthy are, doing things slow and building up. I have experimented with almost everything you could find on YouTube. I've done dirted tanks, filterless tanks, sponge filters. I had pea gravel, run an overstocked pea gravel tank to build up your substrate to make a strong, healthy nutrient profile. Done it. What I found, it's all balanced. They all work. It just depends on what you want to focus on. If you're like me and you don't like gravel backing, a pea gravel substrate is gonna be awesome for you. Why? Because a lot of the stuff that builds up is just gonna soak to the bottom, fall through the cracks of the pea gravel, and eventually fertilize your plants. But if you start off with just pea gravel, you need to have a nutrient profile under there already. So you're gonna need to add some sort of fertilized soil or root tabs. There's trade-offs to everything. Now, if you run just a dirted tank, you can get away with just straight dirt. But then if you have a straight up dirted tank with a hang-on back filter and there's a lot of flow, then you're gonna kick up a lot of mud all the time and your tank's gonna be dirty a lot, from what I understand. I don't run hang-on backs. What I've realized is you can run a straight dirt tank with a sponge filter with no real big mess until you pull a plant out. There's just these give and takes to everything that you can do. My suggestion to beginners is just try whatever interests you. To keep a healthy planted tank, it's really, really simple. You just gotta build it up, I think, slowly. The way I go about things now is aqua soil, so I use like a fluval stratum with pea gravel over that, and I can grow plants like crazy. That'll happen relatively fast with this kind of setup. I've also done sand substrates, but sand is really hard to get natural nutrients built into that stuff, so you have to add another aqua soil or you have to do root tabs under it. Air is another important thing, I think. I just love sponge filters. They're super simple. The failure rate when it does happen is just not as big of a deal as some of the other filters when they fail. I also don't run extreme amounts of air. Reason being is I don't want my fish to be used to something if something were to happen. So if I lose power, yes, I could buy a battery backup system, but why would I need that? If I run a lower amount of air and that cuts off, all I have to really do is pull the tops off my tank and it'll be able to transfer enough oxygen that I won't even have to worry. I have a guppy grow out down here. Doesn't even have a filter on it. It's got a wide open top that transfers gas. I just try to do stuff and show you what works for me. Keys to a healthy planted tank is a good nutrient-rich substrate. I would suggest aqua soil as a base to start off with some pea gravel. Plant some plants in it. You're gonna have a good time. It's gonna be awesome. I breed live bearers all the time because they're easy. You could breed guppies. I have not bred mollies yet, but I have this group of black mollies here that I hope to keep breeding. My main breeding projects are celestial pearl danios, which I do the egg catch method. Pretty easy fish to breed once you understand, and I think it's a good fish to get your reps in with breeding egg scattering fish. It's the fish that I would call like my confidence raising fish. I know I'll be able to get them to breed. I know what they need to be healthy. I also have Cardinal Sulawesi shrimp, which is not one that I breed to sell. It's just one that I breed because I loved the dancing. You know, that thing. They're the rave shrimp, people call them. They are hard water shrimp, and I have hard water, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna give them a shot. Only problem with them is they tend to need harder water, but lately I have actually taken a heater out and I run them at the high 70s. Seem to be doing okay, so I don't necessarily know that everything I've learned about them on YouTube is 100% true. Who would have thought? I'm also starting to condition a group of pygmy cories so I can hopefully start breeding them as well. What I like to do is I'll have fish that I breed consistently, ones that I really know that I'll be able to get going no matter what. Then I rotate out a test project, like a project that I want a fish that I don't really know a lot about, or something I want to learn how to breed, and I'll rotate that project in. So my project before this was Pistogramma cockatoides, and I bred a bunch of Pistogramma cockatoides. I got them to breed. I sold off everything that I had, and then I lost my male. That project came to an end, but I learned a lot of stuff from it. I've moved on to pygmy cories, which is just the cutest darn fish in the world. I am really excited, and hopefully I get to see some babies out of them. That would be awesome. I always have shrimp going. You know, I got red colonies, blue colonies. I think that those are, you know, a bread and butter kind of thing. Like if you're gonna have a breeding at home project, shrimp and some solid plants, fast growing stem plants, I'd always say a rotala. If you're looking to build your own breeding at home project, that's definitely the way to do it, is have plant bundling. You know, I've been keeping fish for about 3 years at this point, but as a kid, you know, my family had always had animals. It was definitely something that was a large part of my family, was like Discovery Channel and Animal Planet, Jeff Corwin and Steve Irwin, all those guys. I think it was Nate that I was eventually gonna get into something like this. Once I got my own space and I was able to really dig in and learn, that's when it was able to take over. Now I got all these tanks. This whole fish room came from leaning into weakness. I found that I could grow plants in my aquariums really well. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I've always wanted to start a business, produce a product. Through growing plants and the fish that I breed, I found that. From my past, I had started a roller rink with a friend. You know, he was the guy that did everything, and I helped him start it, and we built a big business. And through that experience, I learned that just doing stuff, throwing yourself into it, is how you really get stuff accomplished. Now I'm here. I have a small-time aquarium plant and fish business that I sell locally at swaps and to people that I find online. It's just completely fulfilled my life. My favorite fish is the celestial pearl dania. The reason for that is it's the first egg scattering fish I ever bred, and they are just gorgeous fish. When the males are looking to breed and they're all colored up, they have the blue with the spots and the orange and black on the fins. They are like the perfect aquascape fish. They're a little goofy too. They do some of that, you know, kind of fighting. I don't really see the aggression issues with the line that I have that I've heard from other people. I've heard that they can be, you know, kind of mean, but I actually have not seen that, besides for, you know, like the little bit of bickering between themselves. If you ask me what it takes to keep a healthy fish or shrimp, kind of comes down to consistency. I think it comes down to controlling the amount of food you feed. So you're gonna feed on a regular basis, but you're not gonna feed too much. And I think that feeding too much is probably the biggest cause of problems more than anything. I also think that consistency as far as water changes, allowing your water to become biologically active and build up all of those invisible pets that we all keep in our aquariums that we don't necessarily know as much about, but we are building cultures of bacteria that clean our water for us biologically. Doing a lot of water changes and big water changes consistently, you can kind of mix some of that up. So I think that it's important to do consistent, smaller water changes that keeps everything a little bit more fluid. Consistency, I think, is the key to keeping healthy fish and shrimp. Good scheduling, not doing too much. The area I'm from has a lot of minerals in our water, so it's easier for me to just grow plants in my tap water without adding very much stuff, like liquid fertilizers and all that stuff. But someone that lives in a city that has really stripped basically RO water out of the tap, which is reverse osmosis water. It means they took all of the stuff that ends up in your water from nature out of it. That person's gonna have a good time growing plants if they know what they're doing, but a hard time growing plants if they don't. And it all depends. So that's why building a planted tank, you need to find people in your area that are doing it, or someone that has similar water to you. Usually if you follow that route of building a tank, it's gonna go a lot better for you. If you take advice from somebody that has vastly different water parameters, they run RO and they remineralize all their water, the advice you get from them is not necessarily gonna be the advice you need. That's just my thought on how to build a tank. You get advice that matches what you need. My best advice for someone getting into this hobby, instead of going to a fish store, go on Facebook, search for a local aquarium club. If they're gonna have an event, go to that event. You will find so much better deals, healthier fish, healthier shrimp. That's just the way to do it. That's my biggest advice. And you also find people that really care about the hobby and they'll educate you in the ways to make your hobby better. That's my hot take, my biggest piece of advice. Find a local aquarium club. Find people that like the stuff as much as you and learn something from them. Don't just listen to the same people. If you're on YouTube, expand the people that you listen to. There's a lot of fish tubers out there and we all have something unique to bring to the game, and that's the key. 99% of the ways, the hot takes, all the things you hear, they work. It just depends on your own specific situation.